Alright, this is like my 8th take on this video, believe it or not, but this is going to be a basic guide on how to build some really cool and meta teams for Zenless Zone Zero as of version 1.1. As the game gets older, these things are subject to change, but I think for now and for a while, this will be a good baseline on how to make some really good teams in this game. I also want to mention that in terms of meta, you really don't need to follow a meta in this game. You should play whoever you want, with whoever you want, as the meat of the content in this game is easy enough where you don't really need to worry about this type of stuff. But when it comes to doing like the harder content like Shiyu defense and really hard Hollow Zero missions, you really want to have a good baseline on what makes a good team and how to build a good team.
Officer 148,
So first we're going to start off with the foundation for every good team, and that is an attack character. There are some exceptions that we'll get into later, but for the most part, you want to build your whole team around this attack character of your choosing. Zhuyuan and Ellen are the best of them, but most of us will only have a couple or a few. Mostly Corin and Billy, because they were free if you played in the early parts of the game. But you just want to make sure that your attack character is your main focus when it comes to everything. You want to make sure that the team complements your attack character and doesn't directly compete with them. So you don't want to put two attack characters on the same team, as that'll be a conflict of interest, as they both want as much focus and you can't give as much focus when two people on your team need that focus. For your second character, you want to have probably a stun. Stun characters will build up the stun meter on an enemy, and when an enemy is stunned, they are inactive and can't attack you, which means your combos won't be interrupted, and enemies take more damage while they are stunned. So it's important to have a stun character for that alone. Unfortunately, Ambi is the only free and easy to obtain stun character at the moment. This is subject to change, obviously. But if you don't have Ambi built already and aren't using her, I highly recommend that you build her and find a way to use her.
Standing by.
For your third character, however, this is where it gets really interesting, as you have a couple options here. You have anomaly, support, and defense characters that you can use in your third slot. However, in my opinion, I think support is by far the best option at the moment. Support characters pretty much just buff your team's damage in every way. Some have more focus interests, like Sukaku buffs ice damage as well as regular damage. Nicole buffs ether damage as well as regular damage. Rina actually lowers the defense of enemies to enabling you to do more damage to them. But for the most part, all these characters will just buff your team's damage, Lucy included. Now, when it comes to anomaly characters, these are your actual debuffers. They will debuff the enemy based on the elements that they are using. Each element has a different debuff, and I won't get into that because that's a video that has a topic of its own. But all you need to know right now is that anomaly characters generally debuff enemies. And lastly, defense characters, they're pretty much defense. They make it so that you can take more hits, basically enabling you to have shields sometimes, resistance to interruption, and whatnot. But honestly, due to the dodging mechanics and the perfect assist mechanics in this game, such as parrying and dodging and all that stuff, you don't really need a defense character at the moment. I think this is subject to change. As content gets harder, they'll be more relevant. What did I say? More relevant. But for now, they're really just okay. They're all right. If you want to use them, you can, but they're not excellent options at the moment.
Time for some hard labor?
You probably want to know what characters go well specifically with each other. And this is where the team building actually comes into play.
I'll help you with. You want to test my hammer?
So let's start off with a good baseline character that most people will have, which would be... A lot of people like Corin, so let's use Corin. So on every character, as soon as you get them, the first thing you want to do is go to this screen here and press on this. And in the bottom left, you can look up their additional ability and read it. And for Corin, it says when another character in your squad shares the same attribute or faction, Corin deals 35% more damage to stunned enemies. Every character will have something like this where If they share the same attribute or faction as another character in the squad, they will get some sort of passive. The passive will be different, but for the most part, most of the characters in the game will get this new passive if they have someone with the same attribute or faction in the squad. Now, what are the attributes and factions of characters? The attributes are pretty self-explanatory. They're the element, you could say, of the character. Korin is physical, Lucy is fire, Sukaku is ice, so on and so forth. So you want to pair Korin with other physical characters, and you only need at least one. Or if you don't have a physical character to pair with her, you can pair her with at least one Victoria Housekeeping Company character, as that is her faction. Everyone's faction is listed above their name. Lucy's faction is Sons of Caledon. I think I'm saying that right. Sukaku's faction is Hollow Special Operations Section 6. Ambi is Cunning Hairs, so on and so forth. And as long as you have one character that is physical on your team, or one character that is from Victoria Housekeeping Company with Korin, her passive, which is the cleanup assistance, where she deals more damage to stun enemies, will be active. And this is the baseline for every character. So let's go over to Nicole. Nicole's passive is she will enable characters to do more ether damage if they share the same attribute or faction as well. So a good team to have with Nicole, for example, would be a Zhuyuin team, as she is also ether. So that passive that Nicole has will work if you put her on the same team as Zhuyuin.
Huh? Is something the matter?
If you need some extra help figuring out which characters go well together, you can also filter them out like this. So all the Cunning Hairs will be like that. Victoria Housekeeping Company, Bellabog, etc. Now to get into like some more specific stuff, also forgot to mention you could filter them out by attributes too, fire, ice, etc. But to get into more specific stuff, anomaly characters can also be used as a DPS. They kind of get their namesake as they are the most unique characters in the game, and they can be used as a supportive type character or a DPS. Not only do anomaly characters debuff enemies, but they also do a nice chunk of damage every time they debuff a character. Every time they debuff an enemy, sorry. In addition, that damage they do is not held down by crit stats, to my understanding. So you don't really need to build a lot of crit on these characters, and you can kind of build them as a support and they will still do a ton of damage. So you can build them one way and they can be used in both situations. As long as you stack a bunch of anomaly proficiency and a bunch of anomaly mastery on them with, you know, the drive disc and the weapon, you will have a really solid DPS character here that can also be used as support in situations that you need it. This is important for characters that are upcoming like Jane Doe and Bernice. Allegedly is a anomaly character, but Jane Doe is a physical anomaly for sure. We know that, and she is going to be really good just as a main DPS if you want, but also as a support for other physical characters.
Let's take a break.
Otherwise,
Is something the matter?
you know, if you don't want to do that, a good baseline will always be one attack, one stun, one support. Or one attack, one stun, one anomaly. One attack, one stun, one defense. Whatever you do. But just make sure that no matter what team you're building, they always have similar attributes. Or they always have similar factions. To give you some actual teams you can use, a good team would be Zhuyuin, Ambi, and Nicole. As Nicole and Ambi are in the same faction, so their passes will work. And Nicole and Zhuyuin are the same attributes, so they will work. Another option, if you have Nekomata, for example, she's physical. Nekomata and Piper are both physical, so their attributes will work. And Nekomata is in the same faction as Ambi, so their passes will work. Or you compare Nekomata with Nicole as well. So basically, just make sure you match characters up with their factions. Make sure you match them up with their elements. And then you basically will have a really good team. And I think that's about it.